In today's episode, we're going to be talking about 7 documentaries that every entrepreneur should watch. Let's dive in. Hey everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Internet Athletes. On this show, I talk about how to build online businesses. We talk tech, startups, entrepreneurship, and in today's episode, we're going to be talking about 7 documentaries that every entrepreneur should watch because I highly recommend each of these for different reasons. So without further ado, let's dive into number 1. So the first one on the list here is called Euro Dreams of Sushi. So this documentary came out in 2011, and it's a story from a sushi restaurant, a well-known chef named Euro, and him and his sons have a world-renowned restaurant. It was 3-star Michelin, and what they do is they have a 10-seat restaurant that is based in a Tokyo subway station, and it's very high-end. The wait list to eat at the restaurant is, I think, 6 to 12 months, and the documentary just goes to show you that how hard it is to actually make something successful, and just you really appreciate from watching this documentary the intricacies and the fine details of how they can perfect what it is they do, and that is making some of the world's best sushi. I think there's one point in the documentary where he has his son cooking rice for 5 to 10 years, or an apprentice doing a small mundane thing but doing it perfectly. And I think that this relates really well to building a business because it's not always the sexiest thing, but you have to work on a lot of things each day, grinding day in and day out. And that's why I recommend Euro Dreams of Sushi as a great documentary for any entrepreneur to watch. Number 2 on our list is a documentary called Something Ventured. This documentary, in my opinion, is the crash course in venture capital. For the last 40 to 50 years, some of the biggest tech giants, from Cisco to Intel to Google and Apple, they got their start because they had an influx of venture capitalists that were willing to take a risk to invest in these companies. And this documentary goes through a ton of great examples of the early days of Silicon Valley. And it's just, if you watch the documentary, I don't know, it's around an hour or so, it's really a good crash course in venture capital. So whether you know a lot about venture capital or not, and you were looking for that for your business, it's a great documentary to watch nonetheless. Even if you want to bootstrap your company and don't want to go the VC or funding route, it's still an awesome documentary and one that I highly recommend. So that's number 2 on our list of documentaries that entrepreneurs must watch. Number 3 on our list is called Steve Jobs' One Last Thing. Regardless of what you think of Steve Jobs, whether you think he was great or you think he was not so great as a person, every single one of us can respect what he did for Apple and just building it day in and day out. The achievements that that company has made, not only for themselves, but for everyone, to be able to have, smartphone in your pocket, being able to have such amazing technology. And I highly recommend the documentary. So that is why Steve Jobs' One Last Thing is on my list of 7 documentaries everyone should watch. Numero cuatro. This next documentary is a little bit different. It's called Enron, Smartest Guys in the Room. And the reason it's on my list is not because it's, an inspiring documentary in a sense, but I just think it's a good documentary to show what not to do. So I think that when it comes to building businesses, you need to do it in, with good intention, do it ethically, and Enron, Smartest Guys in the Room, is the perfect example of what not to do. A lot of fraud, corruption involved, but the story is told really well, and that's why I put it on my list of documentaries that you should watch. So that is number 4 on the list, Enron, Smartest Guys in the Room. Number 5 is a documentary that is called Joan Rivers, A Piece of Work, and Joan Rivers was a really well-known comedian for years and years. She passed away a few years ago, but this documentary, when it came out about 10 years ago or so, it just kind of follows through a day in the life of her and her schedule. And the video took place, I think the documentary took place when she was around 76, and it's just inspiring to show you that it took her a lot of time to build up her craft and improved over time and really prove herself, because back when she was making a name and an imprint blueprint for herself in, you know, the 60s, 70s. Women weren't as commonplace in the comedy scene, and she really put her foot down and set a mark and set the standard for many women that came after her, and it's really inspiring. So that's why I think that Joan Rivers, A Piece of Work, is a great documentary to watch regardless of what you want to do as an entrepreneur. It was on Netflix. I'm not sure where it is now, but definitely Google it, check it out, and Joan Rivers, A Piece of Work. Awesome documentary. Next documentary on our list is number 6, Supermensch, The Legend of Shep Gordon. This documentary is one of my favorites. I saw it initially a few years back, and who Shep Gordon is fun fact, he actually is an alma mater of the University of Buffalo, my hometown. I think he graduated in the 60s and then moved out west to LA, and he's one of those examples of right place, right time, and he had a really good self-awareness of what he was good at. So I think he initially started out, he was like staying at a hotel and happened to meet Jimi Hendrix and Janis Joplin, eventually became a talent manager for them, and over the years was a talent manager for Alice Cooper, for Anne Murray, for all sorts of people that are, you know, really well known. And he's kind of a, you know, genius in the sense of connecting people, doing good things marketing wise. And I think it's a really good documentary to just watch because he's really inspiring. Another fun fact about Shep Gordon is Emeril Lagasse. Everyone knows him as being one of the first celebrity chefs. He said that Shep right here is the single-handedly the reason why celebrity chefs are a thing, because he really strongly advocated for chefs to be able to have a presence in, you know, digital form on TV back a few decades ago. So this documentary, Supermensch, The Legend of Shep Gordon, is really fascinating, and I highly recommend it. The last documentary on our video for today is number 7. It is called The Defiant Ones, and it's all about Jimmy Iovine and Dr. Dre. And this documentary, if you don't walk away after watching this documentary motivated to go after what it is that you want in life, I don't know what to tell you, but it's a really good documentary. I think it was on HBO, might have been on Netflix. If you just Google The Defiant Ones, you'll find this documentary. And it's all about the story of Jimmy Iovine. He started out, you know, just working. I think he was, you know, cleaning at a record label, and then he started producing. I think he met, you know, Bruce Springsteen, was a really close friend of John Lennon and people back in the day. And then he's pretty much just a music executive over the years. He had Interscope, Aftermath, has worked with so many important artists over the decades, from U2 to Stevie Nicks, you know, a plethora of other people. And then it talks about later in life how him and Dr. Dre have built Beats by Dre, which is, you know, a multi-billion-dollar business. And it's an interesting documentary. Really hits home on the work ethic of how hard they worked for such a long period of time. I highly recommend The Defiant Ones is the last documentary in today's video. And whether you watch all 7 of them, or maybe you pick and choose 1 or 2 of the documentaries that I recommended, really just make sure when you're watching these documentaries, make sure, you know, take some notes, but don't just get enthralled of watching them. You want to actually be able to watch them and then actually take action on what you're learning, absorb it, and put it into your own practice of what you're trying to do and the dent that you're trying to create in the world. I appreciate you watching this video. Make sure that if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button so that each week when we come out with a new video, you are the very first to know about it. Thank you for watching today, and we will see you in the next video.